Why do the jinn like to come in these different forms to terrify certain human beings? The Prophet Muhammad, I'm always going to be speaking from an Islamic standpoint because it makes the most sense to me out of any other religion. So not only did I grow up a Muslim, I am now an ex-Muslim, but it makes the most sense to me, and I put it into categories that fit my practice of beliefs into my life. So the Prophet Muhammad says jinns mainly like to come in the form of snakes and dogs. So in my experience dealing with the jinn that I deal with, it's really an invocation thing. I haven't done too much of evocation. Evocation is making the spirit appear to you in physical form. Me, because I try to expand my mind into other realms, I practice more of an invocation practice where I'm inviting the spirit into my consciousness and understand what they're saying. When it comes to speaking about things like this, it's very tricky because it's like we already have our Guardians into our lives, which is our personal devils on our left side, and then we have the Malak al-Mauts, the Malaika. The Malaika are called the angels in Arabic terms. The Malak al-Maut is the angel of death. Sorry, messed that up a bit. But the Malaika, the angels, we have one on the right, and then we have our Guardian on our left, which is a personal devil that whispers bad, and then we have the angel which whispers good. So that's from the Prophet Muhammad that said that. So let's talk about King Solomon, Prophet Solomon. Prophet Solomon, in the Quran, it says it was not Solomon who disbelieved, it was the jinn who disbelieved. Why did Allah put that in the Quran? During the reign of Solomon, there were magicians and people who did stuff like that. So Solomon collected all the books that he could find from people, and he buried it while he was, ruling his kingdom during his reign. So after that, Solomon, when he passed away, he was like just standing there for days. That has been narrated, and no one knew he was dead. But soon as those jinns found out he was dead, Lord behold, they went and they digged up all of those books, and they said, this is how Solomon used to control the jinn. This is how he used to speak to other sides of reality. And it's very tricky because Solomon, from an Islamic standpoint, Solomon was given the ability to control the jinn, to build his temple and make them his army. When the jinn would fight alongside him, huge army. Of course, they couldn't see the jinn, but he had birds, and it's not an ordinary army. It's otherworldly. He has these energies of the jinns that are unseen. He has animals, some of the animals that are being seen, of course, that the enemy can see, but they're not seeing these unseen forces. And a lot of these enemies of Solomon, they knew that. So why did Allah in the Quran say it was the jinn who disbelieved, not Solomon? So when the jinns dug up those books and spread it and told people this is how Solomon used to control this so-and-so, the interesting thing about this is that it's mentioned in the 72nd chapter of the Quran. In the Ars Goetia, one of the first books that got me into occultism, there's 72 demons that Solomon worked with, and not just your ordinary 72. So jinns, what are jinns? Jinns are smokeless fire beings that we cannot see with our human eyes that Allah made. They're not all bad. They're called jinns in the Arabic term for a reason. Because in a lot of other religions they look at all jinns as bad, and that's an uneducated way to present jinns into this world. However, from an Islamic perspective, there are, of course, good jinn, there are bad jinn, and they have their own free will. However, unfortunately, because Iblis, he was the first, he wasn't the first disbelieving jinn, but he's amongst one of the most prominent and powerful jinns there are today. He's not going to die until the world ends. Why? Because him and God have had a conversation when Adam was created. Iblis explains in the Quran why he did not bow down to Adam. He says, because I am better than him. I am made from fire. He is made from clay. So Iblis is from the jinn. He is not a fallen angel like how these other religions portray him to be, which is why this makes the most sense to me. So doing so, Allah says to Iblis, you will have it. And I'm sorry, I don't remember how Allah exactly said this to Iblis, but I'm going to say it how it's meant. He says basically to him, you will have time, and all the followers that lead in your footsteps, everyone he leads astray is going to be in Jahannam. What is Jahannam? Jahannam is hellfire in the term in Arabic. Okay, so doing that, Iblis explains he's going to lead all of us astray, so and so, until the end of time. So magic was very prominent, and when Solomon, when he asked that from God, he asked God to have what no one else will ever have after him. So he had the ability to control jinn. He had an army of jinn, not only jinn but animals. He could hear and speak to animals. It's narrated that when Solomon, they were marching to fight a fight, they stopped for a group of ants. He heard the ants and he made a prayer. He said, he heard the ants basically, and he said, you will not be harmed to the ants basically. So not only did he have unseen powerful forces of energy by his side, but he had animals and all types of things that are unimaginable to the mind of man. And it's important to mention as well, the children of Bani Israel, they were promised a land, a covenant from Allah, but they were corrupted. And I do apologize, that is my nephew in the background. But don't worry, stick with me. Judaism did not exist in the time of the prophet Yaqub. Who is Yaqub? Yaqub is prophet Jacob. So Yaqub had 12 children. Of those children emerged, one of them was prophet Yusuf. The other one was Binyamin. Those are very two important of the 12. All right. So with that being said, we know that the tribes, those are where the Judaism, Hinduism, all those are from the 12 tribes, are the 12 tribes of Bani Israel. So Israel, that's where that corruption is still being held today. And if we look at it, Jerusalem is in the middle of the most important things of the world today. And that's not by coincidence. Everything is for a reason, whether we can comprehend it or not. It doesn't have to make sense to you, but it exists. And that's just a crazy part of life to look at. Because another thing is, here's an interesting story. The Prophet Muhammad, when they tried to kill him one night, he ran into a cave. They went looking for him. Allah instructed the spider to cover it like it's been there. Allah just instructed the spider what to do, but the spider made a big web like it's been there. So the people said, he can't be in there. This looks abandoned. Like, you know, they didn't win any smoke with that. You know, a big spider web and it's pitch dark. Not too many people are gonna want to go through that. But unharmed. In the cave, they did nothing to him. You know. And it's a lot of interesting stories throughout the Quran that we learn from, but they're not just stories, they're lessons. And what we learn from lessons are what we can never learn from anything else unless we experience it. That's why I said belief is probably one of the most important things in our lives. Putting your belief towards things that matter, the truth. Unfortunately, the truth is always going to come out, but the truth just doesn't have a time limit. You know, like everything else. Like how they say time reveals, but it does it on its own time through the universe. So, I think it's important to also describe the emergence of homosexuality during the time of Lut. They wanted to kill him so bad because he was, like all the other prophets did, spread the word of God. They didn't like that. They didn't, because they look at it like we've been practicing what we've been practicing before you, our grandfathers, our ancestors, and you grow up here and now you want to preach this. But you know, they felt very disrespected. They killed people for even believing in certain things in a lot of these cultures and systems, especially the time of Musa, the time of Fir'aun, when he was killing newborn baby boys because he had a vision from God that he was going to be overthrown. You know, things like that. Another important civilization to talk about that I took from the Quran growing up. Let's talk about Al-Fil. I'm gonna read the verse Al-Fil. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi sahabil fil. Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Fajalahum ka'asfin ma'kul. What is this? This here is talking about the elephant, King Abraha. And Al-Fil, you can feel something from the word feel. Because King Abraha wanted to force his beliefs, a system on people that he believed was right, which doesn't make it right. You know, he tried to march and destroy the Kaaba, something that wasn't his to destroy, and he was destroyed himself. Crazy how that works. The important thing to realize about these jinns is that they fool a lot of people by making them think nothing exists. That's why I can agree with that from a Muslim standpoint, just not how they raise their kids of how to be Muslim. But from that point, raising your kids to be able to think for themselves and between what's real and what's not, this is why this is this. You know, it's very important, even if you don't raise your kids to have a specific religion, to be able to think and to teach your kids to be able to decipher from what's real and what's not will save a lot of misconceptions and confusion. A lot of it. Because being able not to decipher what's the truth and what's false will lead you down a void that you'll be stuck in until you realize it's too late. When is it too late? When we're in the barzakh, the other world, when we're no longer here, when our souls depart from this world. What is the barzakh? The barzakh is, in Islamic terms, it's the world between both worlds. So we have the end of times, we have the day of resurrection, and then we have now, which is, the world is still going. It's not over. So the barzakh is the in between, where the souls are. So let's talk about this. The grave. In the grave, Muslims believe there are two angels who will come question you that are called Harut and Marut. Their names are similar to the two angels who came to the people in Babylon in human form and taught them magic, which they taught them how to do magic to separate husband and wife. So it's similar to that. But Harut and Marut, they're two big angels, and their eyes sparking, big, unimaginable looking angels, terrifying to look at. They're gonna ask you 3 questions. Who was your what did you practice? Who was the man sent to you? And who is your Lord? Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to answer at the top of our head. It's gonna be from the Islamic perspective, of course. It's gonna be how you practice your deen. What is your deen? Your religion. It's gonna be how you practice your life, and that's how you'll be able to answer the angels' questions. And so the first one, the answer to it from an Islamic perspective is going to be, so who is your Lord? Allah. Who is the man sent to you? The Prophet Muhammad. How did you practice your religion, or what was revealed to you? I practiced in the way of Islam. So let's say it's an eternal damned soul. They're not going to be able to answer. They're going to give all types of answers, like, my deen was music, my deen was sex, my deen was illusions of things that I could just do just because. All types of answers. So this person, they're going to show him heaven. They're going to say, this is what you could have had if you would have followed the straight path. But because you didn't, they go to hell. They show him hell. And then they shroud him with the most nastiest smelling clothes. And he's just in the grave until the end of time, dwelling until his appointed time with Allah. And obviously for the good soul, we know it's good fortune. So I won't even go into that. You do good, you get good. Simple as that. You get good, you get heaven. You know, you get Jannah. Jannah means heaven. You do bad, you get Jahannam, meaning hell. So, those are some very powerful things that us as humans, we should always perceive the truth. You know, strive to get the truth. And these days, it's not coming out for no reason. There's definitely a reason. You know, as we're getting closer to the end of times with not just with the Rockefellers keeping society trapped with school. The real knowledge is in the books like this, the Quran, books about demonology, exposing psychiatric awareness. That's the real knowledge. That's why those are banned. The Quran and other religious books are not banned, but I'm saying books like the Grand Grimoire, the Grimoire of Withered Echoes, the Lemageddon, all books that I love, books that help you advance. That's why they're banned. And they banned it. Now they want to bring it to light. And they're doing that to try to confuse people, because it does confuse people. It's like, damn, I believed in Christianity for so long, but now this seems so real. Like I have jinns who can help me advance in my life. And you know, when you're confused about a certain religion, you don't give your full 100% into it because you're confused. You don't know what to believe. So think for yourself.